He stood at the window, staring at the crowd gathering outside, angry, determined, and growing in numbers. The Stasi headquarters had fallen. Now they were coming for the KGB, for him. Vladimir Putin had spent years operating in the shadows, pulling strings, keeping order in the way he'd been trained. And yet at this moment he was powerless. He picked up the phone, his voice steady, demanding reinforcements. The answer came back in a chilling monotone. We cannot do anything without orders from Moscow. And Moscow is silent. If you love profound, historic, and timeless tales, then you found the right place. Twice a week, HEATHSTORY delivers full episodes, so be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a story. Vladimir Putin was not supposed to be here, not in Dresden, not watching the empire he had devoted his life to serve crumble before his eyes. When he was a boy growing up in the ruins of post-war Leningrad, he had already decided what kind of man he would become. His parents had barely survived the war. His father had been wounded serving in the Soviet Navy. His mother nearly starved to death during the siege of Leningrad. His older brother wasn't so lucky. He died in a labor camp, one of the countless victims of the blockade. The war left scars on everyone, but it shaped Putin in a different way. He didn't just see hardship. He saw survival, strength, power, and he wanted it. Leningrad was a city of hunger and hardship, but also of fights. Gangs of boys ruled the courtyards, and if you were small, you had two choices: be beaten or learn how to strike first. Putin chose the latter. He was small for his age, but quick. He fought constantly, throwing himself at opponents much bigger than him. And he learned a valuable lesson. It wasn't size that determined the winner. It was who was willing to go further. He turned that instinct into discipline. He took up judo and sambo, Russian martial arts that taught him how to use an opponent's force against them. He didn't just learn how to fight. He learned how to control a fight, how to manipulate momentum, how to make his opponent think they had the upper hand until they didn't. He trained obsessively, earning a black belt in judo, mastering how to take down opponents who underestimated him. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew he could win any fight before it even began. But Putin wanted more than street fights. He wanted real power, and he had already decided where he'd find it. By the time he was a teenager, he was obsessed with Soviet spy thrillers. He watched movies about deep-cover KGB operatives who would bring down governments with a single move. He studied their methods. He wanted to be one of them. At 15, he walked into the KGB headquarters in Leningrad and asked how he could join. The officer laughed. The KGB didn't take walk-ins. He needed a degree. He needed skills. So he made a plan. He would study law because that's what the KGB wanted. And then they would come to him. They did. In 1975, he was recruited. He went through brutal training. He learned how to gather information, how to plant disinformation, how to recruit informants, how to manipulate minds. He learned to be invisible. The best KGB officers were the ones no one remembered, the ones who blended in, and Putin mastered that art. But his first assignment wasn't glamorous. He was sent back to Leningrad, where he worked in counterintelligence, watching dissidents, sniffing out foreign spies. It wasn't what he wanted. He wanted the front lines. And in 1985, he finally got it. He was sent to East Germany, to the Cold War battlefield of Dresden. Dresden was no Moscow. It wasn't even Berlin. It was a quiet, overlooked corner of the Soviet Empire. But that made it the perfect place for quiet operations. Putin embedded himself with the Stasi, the East German secret police. The Stasi had turned East Germany into a surveillance state. There were informants on every block. Neighbors spied on neighbors. Children informed on their parents. And Putin learned how to use that fear. He learned how to recruit, how to pressure, how to build networks of informants without ever exposing himself. Putin's time in Dresden wasn't spent in thrilling spy chases or high-stake missions. His work was slower, quieter, and more insidious. He worked closely with the Stasi, ensuring the Soviet grip on East Germany remained firm. He monitored foreign students and businessmen looking for recruits. He handled intelligence leaks, making sure no secrets slipped into Western hands. He kept the machine running. In December 1989, as protesters gathered outside, Putin knew what had to be done. He gathered stacks of classified documents, the kind that, if discovered, would expose Soviet spies, secret operations, and informant networks. He rushed to the furnace, stuffing paper after paper into the flames. The heat intensified, smoke filled the air, pages curled, blackened, and disintegrated. The fire burned so hot the furnace nearly overheated, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. These secrets had to disappear, because if the world saw what was in those files, the KGB wouldn't just be embarrassed, it would be destroyed. Outside, the roar of the crowd grew louder. The Stasi headquarters had been overrun. The protesters were at the gates. The entire Soviet order was collapsing in real time. Putin picked up the phone. He needed orders, reinforcements, anything. The voice on the other end was flat, almost indifferent. We cannot do anything without orders from Moscow, and Moscow is silent. That moment told him everything. Power could vanish overnight. Strength was an illusion if it wasn't ruthlessly maintained. And from that moment on, Vladimir Putin would dedicate his life to making sure he would never be that powerless again. When the Soviet Union fell, Putin fell with it. But unlike many former KGB officers, he didn't disappear. He adapted. He took what he had learned and moved into politics. He surrounded himself with allies who had been with him in Dresden. He understood how power worked. He knew how to eliminate threats before they became real. He climbed step by step until he reached the presidency. And once he had power, he never let go. Everything he has done, silencing journalists, imprisoning or assassinating opposition leaders, invading Ukraine, it all stems from that night in Dresden. The night he stood at the window watching the empire he had served crumble. Watching power slip through his fingers and deciding once and for all that he would never allow himself to be that powerless again. And now, decades later, he still fights the battles he lost that night, still chases the ghosts of an empire that no longer exists, because deep down, Vladimir Putin knows exactly what happens when Moscow goes silent. And he has spent his entire life making sure that silence never comes again.
New Heath Story episodes drop twice a week only on the Jim Heath channel. If you'd like to help keep Heath Story going, consider becoming a member. Click below to join.